You know how sometimes you hear those stories about trade deficits? And like everyone's freaking out, or the opposite, right? Trade surpluses, and suddenly it's all celebrations.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, get ready, because today we're going deep on the balance of trade.
We're doing a deep dive, and it's honestly way more interesting than it might seem at first glance.
That's what you always say, but you always seem to be right.
What's fascinating about the balance of trade, often called the BOT.
BOT, got it. Like a robot, but for trade.
Exactly. It's how often people completely misunderstand it. They get so caught up in this idea of good or bad.
Right, like a simple thumbs up, thumbs down.
But trade, it's just not that simple.
Okay, so no easy answers then. You've definitely got my attention. I've been looking through like a whole stack of articles here, notes, and honestly, feeling a bit overwhelmed. Let's rewind back to basics. What even is this thing, this balance of trade?
At its core, the BOT is really just saying, how much is a country exporting minus how much it's importing?
Simple subtraction.
Yeah. It gives you a sense of whether they're selling more stuff to the rest of the world than they're buying, or the other way around.
So more exports, that's a surplus, like
Yeah.
extra, right?
Right.
And then more imports, that's our deficit. We're in the hole a bit.
Exactly.
Okay, that seems easy enough, I guess. But you're saying there's more to it, or you wouldn't be here?
100%.
Yeah.
You can't just focus on that final number. Think of the BOT like a snapshot.
Okay.
It captures one moment, but it doesn't tell you the whole story of a country's economy, whether it's healthy or not.
Right, right.
So a trade deficit, for example, isn't automatically a bad thing.
Really? Because my Econ 101 professor, I swear, made it sound like the ultimate economic sin.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it gets a bad rap. And on the flip side, a surplus isn't always something to throw a party for.
Hold on, wait. Really? That seems counterintuitive.
It's all about context.
Mhm.
Let's use the United States as our example here.
Okay, perfect example. Everyone knows about the U.S.
The U.S. has been running a trade deficit consistently for decades now.
Yeah, it's always in the news.
And it hasn't exactly been economic doom and gloom, right?
We're still here.
Exactly. In fact, and this might surprise you, the U.S. actually ran a trade deficit for almost every single year between 1800 and 1870.
Whoa. I had no idea. That's a pretty long streak. And we made it through that just fine. So, what's the deal then? If a trade deficit doesn't automatically mean a country is, like, failing,
Mm.
what does it actually tell us? What are we supposed to understand?
It's about the nuances. Always more going on beneath the surface. Like, let's say a country, any country, they've got this trade surplus.
Okay, looks good on paper, right? They're exporting more than they're importing, winning.
Right, but what if that's only happening because their currency is weak?
Okay, yeah, how does that play into it? I always forget about currencies.
So if your money's weak, your stuff suddenly looks cheap to other countries, right?
Like a giant sale.
Exactly. So their exports might jump up. Everyone's buying because, hey, bargain. But it might not mean their products are actually better.
Just cheaper.
Sometimes, yeah. Winning on price, not quality, to put it one way.
Interesting. Okay, so then, opposite problem, trade deficit. Does that automatically mean a country's economy is weak?
Not at all. Could actually mean the opposite in some ways.
Come on, now you're just messing with me.
No, think about it. A country with a deficit, they're importing a lot, right? Which means their people have money to spend, they're buying stuff from everywhere.
So it could just be a country full of shoppers. That's actually kind of reassuring. I like to shop.
Exactly. But again, never the whole story. Remember that article about China?
Which one? We talked about a bunch. Oh, right. The one where their trade surplus went crazy high at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, January, February of 24.
Right. So what was going on there? Seemed like good news at the time.
On the surface, right? Like their economy was on fire. But then you dig a little and you see their imports had actually tanked.
No one was buying from them?
Not as much, no.
Mm.
So it wasn't that they were exporting like crazy. It's that their own people weren't buying much at all. Potentially a bad sign,
Economic uncertainty, maybe?
Could be. Point is, the surplus there, kind of deceptive if you don't look closer.
Wow, so it was actually like a warning sign disguised as good news.
Exactly. And that brings us to something really important, this idea of the bigger picture. The balance of trade, it's just one piece of it.
You keep saying that, and now I'm dying to know, what is this bigger picture we should be looking at? So we've got this puzzle, right? The big economic picture, and our balance of trade is just one piece. What else is there? Like, what are we trying to put together to really understand what's going on?
Okay, so the BOT, it's actually part of this even bigger, more complex thing called the balance of payments.
Which is, remind me, it's been a hot minute since econ class.
Think of it like, imagine a massive spreadsheet, right? Tracking every dollar that flows in and out of a country. That's the BOP.
Okay, so everything, not just the stuff we buy and sell.
Right, way more than that. You've got your trade, obviously, goods and services, that's the BOT part. But then there's like investments coming in from foreign countries,
Hmm.
money that people are sending back home from overseas.
Oh, right, remittances. Right, I've heard about that. Huge source of income for some countries.
Exactly. And then even things like, government stuff, foreign aid, that all gets factored in.
So it's really getting a sense of the total money flow in and out, not just the like supermarket checkout line of what we're buying.
Perfect analogy. And that's why it matters so much. Because to really get a read on a country's economic health and to understand what the BOT is really telling us, you can't just look at that one number by itself. It's got to be alongside all these other economic factors.
Okay, so what kind of factors are we talking about? Give me the rundown.
Well, the big ones. Inflation, right? That's huge these days. Then unemployment numbers. How's the job market doing? And overall economic growth. Is the pie getting bigger, or are we fighting over slices?
Right, it's like, okay, so you've got a trade surplus. On paper, sounds awesome.
Right, we're selling more than we're buying. But what if, at the same time, inflation's through the roof?
Yeah, your money's not going as far, even if you've got more of it.
It's exactly.
All right.
Or think about a recession. Economy shrinking, demand drops, right?
Yeah.
People buy less stuff, both inside the country and from overseas. What happens? Imports go down, which can sometimes, can accidentally, lead to a trade surplus.
So you might look like you're winning on trade, but really it's just that everyone's too broke to buy anything.
Exactly. A surplus isn't always a good sign. You got to look at what's causing it. Same thing with the deficit. Doesn't automatically mean doom and gloom. Could be a country that's just got high consumer spending, which isn't always a bad thing.
Okay, so I'm getting it. Don't get seduced by a single number. Gotta zoom out, look the whole picture.
100%. And that's what we always try to do here, right?
It's the deep dive, after all. So if people are going to take away one big thing from today about this whole balance of trade thing, what should it be?
Don't freak out or celebrate, for that matter, based on the BOT alone. Look past the headlines.
Don't just read the tweet, as they say.
Exactly. What's driving that surplus or deficit? What else is happening in the economy? Ask those questions.
Context is everything. You sound very wise today.
Well, I learned from the best.
Mhm.
And hey, don't forget about those exchange rates. Those can really mess with a country's trade balance.
Right. Strong currency sounds good, but not always when it comes to selling your stuff overseas.
All connected, right? The global economy, it's wild. But this is a good first step, understanding this stuff.
Absolutely. Well, listeners, I feel like we've done some serious unpacking today. The balance of trade, it's more nuanced than it seems. Way more.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So next time you see those headlines, you know the ones, trade deficit this, trade surplus that, remember, there's always more to the story. Dig deeper and never be afraid to ask, what does it really mean? That's what we do here on The Deep Dive. Until next time.